My wife got pregnant, but guess what? I'm infertile. So I exposed her in front of court.
Life's full of surprises, but finding out your daughter isn't yours? That's one for the books. Today on Our Space, OP thought the biggest surprise in his life was his vasectomy, but turns out it was his wife's pregnancy. Finding out the truth about my wife. We spent 2 years together in college and got married the fall after we graduated. Spent 2 years exploring our relationship and finally got settled down and was ready to raise a family. She got off birth control and her libido took off, but it took 3 years for us to get pregnant. But we got a beautiful girl finally. After a couple of months, my wife got back on birth control and had a hard time with it. Her doctor switched her meds several times, but she had bad side effects with each one. We talked about it, and were unsure if we wanted another child, and since it was easier for me to get a vasectomy reversed later if we decided to have more children, I had the operation. That was 3 years ago, and after coming off birth control, my wife has felt better, and sex has been worry-free since we can no longer get pregnant. We actually have sex more now than when we were in college. Then, 3 weeks ago, my wife was late for her period, which isn't that unusual for her. Then I noticed her breasts were a little tender, and she started what seemed like signs of morning sickness. Now I know there have been cases of nature reversing vasectomies, so I went to the doctor and had my sperm count checked, and the verdict was I'm still sterile. But I didn't tell my wife. My wife finally went to her doctor and confirmed she was pregnant, and so she had me go to my doctor to get tested. I didn't go right away because I was literally sick from the stress of the situation. I had all sorts of sick scenarios going through my head. In the end, I got retested, and I took my daughter in and had a DNA test done. I got both test results back today and got violently ill after reading them. Yes, I am sterile, and no, my daughter isn't mine. When my wife got home, I showed her my test, and she denied any wrongdoing and saying that there was a problem with the test, and I showed her the test from last week, and she broke down crying. I finally got it out of her who she had slept with, and that it only happened once, and the condom must have failed. I made her tell me the story 3 times, and each time I asked her if that was the whole truth, and if there was anything else that she needed to tell me because under the lie would mean we were through. She said that was the only time, and she had never done anything like that before. I told her how much this hurt me, and asked her how she could do this to our family, and if it was worth it. I asked her if she wanted a divorce, and she pleaded with me to forgive her and put this behind us. I said I couldn't raise someone else's child, and asked her if she would be willing to terminate the pregnancy in order to stay together. She cried the rest of the night, but when we went to bed, she said she would do whatever it took to save our marriage. I never brought up the DNA test. I will contact a lawyer next week to see what my options are about if I have to pay child support on our first child. If she had come clean about the father of our first child, I could have swallowed my pride and tried to work to forgive her, but she thought she was in the clear and didn't need to confess to anything else. No telling what I'll never know. Lawyer update. My lawyer is awesome. She had me bring in a bunch of paperwork, bank statements, and my medical and DNA results and had me tell her my story. Her assistant sat in with us and took notes while my lawyer went through my documents. After I finished, she asked a few questions and spelled out my options. I live in an at-fault state, which is good and bad. Good as in it gives us leverage, bad as it takes longer and much more expensive. In the case of the first child, if my wife agrees to sign the papers, my liability for child support is an easy fix. If she doesn't agree, then a court-ordered DNA test and a judgment from the court can remove me without my wife's consent. Either way, I will most likely not have to pay child support. One way, it's just more expensive than the other. Since my wife has a good job and earns close to what I do, she didn't think the judge would award her any alimony. And all of that, plus dividing up property and other things, can be negotiated before a judge gets involved. The bad news was, due to the holidays, they couldn't have the papers ready before Christmas, but definitely would before the end of the year. She advised me to say nothing until she got served. She gave me a list of things to do before and after Christmas, before they served my wife. One thing they did point out was since we were already actively trying to have a baby, there was a possibility that my wife didn't know that the child wasn't mine. My wife has an appointment with her OB tomorrow. Let's check with the community for some thoughts. First up, divorce her. She is one of the worst human beings. You don't deserve such a betrayal. You will regret it if you do not divorce her. She is selfish and a B. Effing around and not even giving you the real answers. Your first daughter is also not yours, right? And the second one also? Someone else adds, paternity fraud should be a crime. Your wife may have been carrying on this affair since before you were together. I'm sure she sees security with you, but gets off on the sex with her affair partner. If it's been going on for this long, that's a whole separate life she is living. you should do your best to find out who and let his wife, girlfriend know. You can look into having your name removed from the birth certificate so you will not be held responsible for paying for someone else's child. If you're going to stay, then the bio dad should be made to pay child support. If I were in your shoes, I would blow up this relationship and start over with someone who respects and loves you. Someone for who you are enough for. You spend years building a life together, get a vasectomy to simplify things, and then boom, she's pregnant. But not by you. Who knew exploring our relationship meant she'd take it literally to invite other explorers along for the ride? The fact that you kept it together long enough to get those DNA tests is impressive. I'd have probably self-destructed just from the suspense. And then finding out your daughter isn't yours? That's a double whammy right there. At least now you know what to give your wife for Christmas. A paternity test kit. Your lawyer sounds like the MVP here, guiding you through this minefield. Maybe you should start taking notes from her on how to deal with relationships. Though I'd recommend a return policy on any future kids. It might be time to blow up this relationship and start fresh with someone who doesn't see family planning as a group activity. At least that way, you can avoid any more unexpected guest stars in your life story. Update. So I met my sister at my house and we started moving my stuff to her house while the divorce goes through, or at least until my soon-to-be ex-wife leaves and I get possession of the house. We took 4 carloads to her house and came back for the rest. My sister felt it important for her to be there to support and as a witness. I also moved the nanny cam into the living room so it could record everything in the cloud. At about 10:45 a.m., I got a text from the lawyer saying she had been served. I sent her an email saying that I am at the house when she is ready to talk. A couple of minutes later, I got a text from my wife saying, "Why? Blah, blah, blah." So I resent the first text and waited for her to get home. She sent several texts and voicemails. They don't mention anything about cheating, just how she thought we were working this out, and she thought we would sit down and have a conversation before proceeding with a divorce. Playing the family card and how this will devastate the child and our families, how she feels betrayed, that was a good one. She was still sharing her location, and it took her 20 minutes before she left work. She then stopped at a nearby Walgreens for a few minutes. The purpose of the stop at Walgreens became clear as a police car pulled in behind her in the driveway. According to the officers, she got the police there because she said she was afraid and that we had guns in the house. I showed the officers my empty gun safe and said that I had removed them to another secure location. We went back to the living room and I showed my wife the paternity test that I had done that showed her daughter was not mine. Her response was denial and disbelief, which appeared genuine. She broke down and cried for about 10 minutes. I told her this was the final straw and why I wanted the divorce. At about that time, the police officers reminded me to keep it civil and made their exit after I told them I was leaving soon to stay at my sister's house. When I asked who the child's father was, she claimed she didn't know. I asked if there was that many guys she was sleeping with, or did she just not know his name? I asked how many times had she cheated on me between pregnancies, to which she said it was just the 2 of them. I told her that I had said earlier if she didn't tell the whole truth that I was done. I reminded her I also told her that I wouldn't raise someone else's child, and that she had better figure out who the real father was because I wasn't paying child support for someone else's baby. She wanted to know what we were going to tell our daughter, and I said that was up to her because this was her mess and I wasn't taking the blame or cleaning it up for her. I drafted a couple of emails last week, one for our friends and family with copies of all the test results and reasons why I was asking for divorce. The other for my wife with copies of the same tests along with what I knew and things that I had told her previously. I had to run it through my lawyer and make a couple of edits before she signed off on it. I sent copies to all our friends and relatives when she pulled into the driveway this afternoon. Most of the feedback had been one-sided and very colorful. In the end, I told her if she had been truthful, we might have been able to work things out, but I couldn't trust a lying serial cheater. And I told her if she had gotten her tubes tied instead of me getting a vasectomy, she might have got away with it. I told her she needed to get a lawyer so we could move forward and start to heal. Update. We had our second meeting with the lawyers today and we signed off on almost everything except the house. Still waiting for an appraisal to come back and figure out the split. Motions got filed today and a court-ordered paternity test was scheduled for all 3 of us. Since soon-to-be ex-wife didn't fight me on everything, we filed a no-fault divorce petition. If everything goes right, I get the house back on February 15th and the divorce will be final on April 5th. The lawyers did a better job keeping us separated and the conversation between the 2 of us to a minimum. I was a little worried when she came in, pale and with no energy to speak of. I couldn't tell if it was a lack of sleep or maybe over-medicated. She just stared out the window as the lawyers read everything to us before we signed some of the papers. Walking out felt like I had shed a giant weight from around my neck. HR got me signed up for therapy tomorrow. My boss had put a bottle of champagne on my desk, offered me some time off if I needed it, but I told him I was excited to get back to work. Some more community thoughts. First up, I understand your need to end the marriage and disassociate yourself from the child. Just get ready for people to come down hard on you because you're leaving the kid. I get it, but it isn't their business. If you're sure you can't be a good father to the child, then you leaving is the best choice. I'm sorry for the child, but her cheating mother is to blame, not you. Good luck. The OP replies, I could never be the kind of father she needs. She's a carbon copy of my ex-wife, and every time I look at her, it reminds me of her mother and what she did to me. I'll miss her, but this is something I don't think I'll get over. Plus, I would have to see my ex, and that won't be a good thing either. The next person says, Thank you for respecting yourself. Your ex-wife is one of the worst human beings, making you believe you're the father and just taking it away that easy. Don't believe anything she says. She was ready to let you raise someone else's children forever. You handled it perfectly. Go full no contact and don't be a nice guy. She did 2 of the worst betrayals to you. Good thing you handled family and friends. Every step you did is what I advise everyone else in this sub to do. Good luck. The OP replies, Don't believe anything she says. She was ready to let you raise someone else's children forever. Her reaction to the paternity test seemed credible. I think it's just possible she didn't think she was mine. The DNA wasn't even close to a match, so it was pretty clear I'm not the father. But yeah, everything else she says is probably a lie. Man, OP, what a wild ride you've been on. It's like you're living out an episode of Jerry Springer, but with fewer fistfights and more paperwork. Your sister's there for moral support and, let's face it, to witness the chaos. Good call on the nanny cam. Might as well turn your living room into a reality TV set, right? Your soon-to-be ex gets served, and predictably, she goes full drama queen, sending you a barrage of texts and betrayal and family devastation. She even brings the cops into it because, of course, she's suddenly scared of you and your non-existent arsenal. Classic move, really. Nothing says, I'm the victim, like dragging the police into the domestic squabble. Then the pièce de résistance. You drop the paternity test bombshell, and she does the Oscar-worthy performance of denial and disbelief. She even cries for 10 minutes straight. Did she practice that in front of a mirror? When you ask who the father is, she claims she doesn't know. Either she's been busier than a bee in spring, or her memory's as selective as her morals. The emails you drafted? Chef's kiss. Sending out copies of the test results to friends and family is a power move. Bet their group chats are lit right now. And the fact that your lawyer signed off on it? That's just icing on the divorce cake. As for the kid, it's rough, but it sounds like you're making the best decision for your sanity. Anyone judging you can take a hike. They aren't living your life or dealing with your ex's web of lies. So here's to a fresh start and a drama-free future. Cheers! What would you have done? Would you have stuck around for the kid? Would you have wanted to be in the child's life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today on Our Space. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time!